So, Collateral Beauty, the butt of so many jokes when it comes to talking about Will Smith's career. But why? Ask anyone if they've actually seen this movie, and chances are, they haven't. But people kept saying it was bad, so we might as well make fun of it just because. I was someone that made fun of it too back in the day, but when I sat down and watched it for the first time back in 2020, I found the film with flaws, but one with genuine effort put into almost every scene. This wasn't a bad film or a disaster like everyone said. It was just an okay film with the pieces to make a truly great one. Ever since I saw this film, I wanted to make a video about it, but I never could figure out the best way to do it. Then, I finally watched It's a Wonderful Life a year ago. Yes, I'm aware I'm very behind on when I should have seen it, and found my answer. Collateral Beauty tried to be the next It's a Wonderful Life. When you look at both films, it's not that hard to see. Both films center on a man dealing with depression and feeling like there's no way out. They're both confronted by a spiritual figure of some kind to help them find their will to live again, and both are set at Christmas time. However, where one was able to succeed in its mission, the other did not. So, I'm going to go into full spoilers on this movie that no one has seen and nobody cares about to try to find out why this film didn't become the next It's a Wonderful Life and how it could have fixed itself to become that. I honestly do recommend you check this out before you watch the video if you haven't yet. So, a brief breakdown of the film. Collateral Beauty follows Howard, played by Will Smith, whose daughter died a few years ago and he hasn't been able to emotionally or mentally recover from the tragedy. He writes letters to love, time, and death as a form of therapy, and then one day, they begin to appear to him to try to help him find his will to live again. The film ends with him reconnecting with his wife and being able to accept his daughter is gone, and he begins to find peace with that knowledge. Except, that's what the trailers led us to believe the film was about. Sure, Howard did lose his daughter and is a lost soul, but he doesn't actually speak to love, time, or death. He's talking to actors. See, his friends that work with him at his advertising company are worried about losing their jobs in the company because Howard hasn't been able to do his job for years. There's an opportunity to sell the company to keep everyone's jobs, but they need Howard to sign off on it, and he won't. So, they hired actors to play these spiritual figures to film their interactions and edit them out, so it looks like Howard has lost his mind so he can realize he's not in the right headspace to lead them. Sure, they reveal what they did in the end, and they regret their actions, but to say the trailers lied is certainly fitting. Now, I will say, I don't think this idea is a bad one. You can make this story work by going either way, them being spirits or them just being actors. There's ways to make them both work, but in order for it to work, you need to have the focus right, and this film doesn't for a lot of the film. Instead of focusing on Howard, we focus on Edward Norton, Kate Winslet, and Michael Peña's characters. Rather than explore Howard finding his will to live again, we instead focus more on these characters coming to terms with their own lives as they interact with these actors and how it shapes them more than we do Howard. That'd be like if in It's a Wonderful Life, Clancy focused more on showing George's wife why her life mattered more than focusing on George's. It's completely backwards and leaves the film feeling like no lesson has really been learned and that any message given was half-assed. Focusing and growing these characters isn't a bad thing, but having them be the more primary focus rather than our lead was a very strange choice. Had the actors interacted more with Howard and his friends grow and change by seeing Howard grow and change, then the film's messages could have worked more. But instead, we get Howard literally spelling out the lessons they learned near the end, and it just doesn't work. Another major misstep by focusing more on his friends than Howard is we don't see much at all about his relationship with his daughter. While the film does a really good job at showing the grief and anguish a parent goes through when losing a child, the emotional moments don't hit as hard because we don't see them much at all together. Had the film spent more time showing how strong their relationship was, then the emotional moments would have hit that much harder. Compare this to It's a Wonderful Life. The entire film, we're learning about George's life and what leads up to him wanting to commit suicide. And by I mean the entire film, I mean almost the entire film. I had always thought that it was just a little bit of George's life we'd learn about in the film and it'd be done after a few minutes. But it's 3/4 of the film we spend learning about his life. By taking the time to focus on George and truly learn who he is as a person, we're able to connect with him a lot more, and his decisions at the end of the film feel more meaningful and earned because of it. When Howard reconnects with his wife and acknowledges his daughter is gone, it doesn't feel earned because we never got to know what their life was like together. Even if the film stuck with just using actors, you can flash back to memories and get the same kind of effect. With the film being only 90 minutes long, it feels incredibly short in terms of what this story was calling for, and Howard only interacts with each actor twice in the film. Couple that with the film not focusing on him enough, and you're left with the premise that sadly gets wasted due to its lack of focus and not long enough runtime. So, a big part of what made It's a Wonderful Life a classic was its setting at Christmas time. But few people remember that it's really only the last little bit of the movie that's set at Christmas. Most of the film is set throughout the year over several years because of how we learn about George's life. The reason it's stuck in people's minds that it's a Christmas movie is the themes and messages of the movie. Christmas can be a very magical, cheery, and uplifting time for so many people, but it can also be one of the darkest and saddest times in so many others' lives. For George, Christmas was when it seemed like his entire life was coming crashing down and it was all his fault. The season of hope and merry is suddenly clouded as dark and vengeful. Once George finds the will to live again, he's able to see what makes not only life so precious, but Christmas as well. Even in the darkest of times, people are still able to come together and help their fellow man in their hour of need. That's why it's a Christmas classic. In Collateral Beauty, it's at least set at Christmas. Yeah, funny enough, this film really doesn't use its Christmas setting much at all. Despite being in New York at Christmas time, there's only like one line that could have tied what Howard is going through with the season, and they just brush it off. Setting this story at Christmas on paper is a very smart idea. Again, like It's a Wonderful Life, you take the season that's supposed to be the happiest, but you explore how it affects someone that's unable to see the joy it brings to so many. Christmas is a time so many people spend with family, and Howard has no family. It was taken from him, and he believes that he has no one. This premise at this time of year was ripe for drama and heartbreak, but instead, they don't use the setting much at all. Aside from being nice set dressing, with the way the film is, you can set this movie at any time of year and nothing will change. The theme doesn't change, the messages don't change, it can all stay the same. If you want it to be the next It's a Wonderful Life, then you needed to integrate the film into the holiday more. As we see with It's a Wonderful Life, by tying the themes and messages to the holiday, you end up creating a film set for the holiday. It's not enough to just set it at the season, you have to make it an active part of the story for it to work. This is the thing that ultimately makes the movie not work, for me and most other people. So, throughout the film, Howard starts going to a group therapy session for parents whose kids have died. He connects with this woman, Madeline, played by Naomi Harris, and the two connect as she tries to help him come to terms with what's happened to him. At the end of the film, it's revealed, quite out of nowhere, that Madeline was Howard's wife who divorced him not long after their child died.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, you heard that right. These two people, who we're led to believe this whole film have never met each other up until this point, actually knew each other quite well. Can you follow that logic? There is not a single line up until that reveal that leaves the impression they once knew each other, because it was never once implied that was the case. Why this absolutely bonkers twist is in here, I have no idea. You can cut it out and nothing changes. I guess the logic of the writer was that when they divorced, Howard gave her a letter that said, "If only we could be strangers again," and that's supposed to cover why they act like they don't know each other throughout the whole movie, but that literally doesn't excuse it at all. If you wanted the story to be these two reconnecting, that's more than fine, but having it be through this insane twist that doesn't come off as clever, but as stupid, does not make the storyline work at all. For all that this film does to explore the grief a parent goes through with losing a child, wouldn't it make sense to also explore why so many couples leave each other after something like that happens? By making them seem like they don't know each other, the film loses a lot of interesting topics and themes to explore that rarely get shown on film and makes the film worse for it. But wait, there's more. If you thought this film had one stupid twist, it has another. Remember those actors that were hired to play the spiritual figures? It turns out they actually were those spiritual figures.
What?
So, not only can this film not stand its own ground with its ideas, it tries to make itself seem smart by revealing that insanity at the end. That doesn't make you look smart, that makes you look even more dumb. The entire film, there is nothing that hints at or implies these three people are anything other than real. They go to rehearsals, they shop at stores, they live real lives and have physical forms, and we're just supposed to accept at the end they weren't real at all? I'm sorry, but no, I do not accept that. With the way the film is, do it one way or the other. Or, if you're going to have the reveal at the end, then you have to imply it throughout the film. Do you really think that Sixth Sense would have been remembered if Shyamalan hadn't put clues in throughout the film? No! You can't just tell us one thing, then reveal at the end it was a lie without any kind of hints. That's not clever storytelling, that's just lying, and I hate liars! If you wanted them to be actors, fine. If you wanted them to be spirits, fine. If you wanted them to be revealed to be spirits, fine. But make it make sense. Don't half-ass your ideas. There's a difference between trusting your audience and acting like you outsmarted them. You didn't outsmart us, you just showed how this film doesn't work. It's a Wonderful Life never needed to rely on a twist for the film to work. There was no secret that was hidden. Clancy wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. The film was straightforward because that's what it needed to be. Collateral Beauty is a very flawed film, though I do think it is worth a watch. The performances from everyone, especially Will Smith, who gives one of his best, are fantastic, and the emotional moments, when they're truly earned, do work well. It's a shame this film tried so hard to be the next It's a Wonderful Life, but never quite figured out how to do it. It's a Wonderful Life has been able to stand the test of time because it effectively explored its lead character's life in a way that was understandable and emotional to witness. By tying its story and themes to the ideas of Christmas, it became a Christmas classic. There's a reason It's a Wonderful Life is still viewed by millions every Christmas season, and there's a reason no one talks about Collateral Beauty. Christmas dramas are never a bad thing, but if your execution is off, not only do you risk creating a bad film, but a film that doesn't understand what it means to be a Christmas movie.